Stop buying Chinese-made guitars. If you're a budget guitar enthusiast living in the United States, chances are you know about the tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China that were imposed by the White House. There have been plenty of videos made by YouTubers on the subject, from Guitar Max and to Torsten of Tease Guitars and Gary's Guitars. If you haven't seen these videos yet, I will put a link in the description. These tariffs range from 10% to 25% or more on the value placed on the item as it enters the country, not the retail price of the item. That could still mean that guitar prices are going up. Canadian brands like Godin and Seagull will be affected, Mexican-made guitars by Fender will be affected, and pretty much any budget guitar that we all frequently buy from Amazon will also be affected. These tariffs could also affect American-made guitars, as well as guitars made in other countries, because these guitar makers may use parts from China, Canada, or Mexico. So should we stop buying guitars from China? Well, maybe. There are more than financial reasons to avoid buying from China. I can't tell you how often I receive comments from viewers about how Chinese guitars are made by slaves, or buying guitars from China supports the communists. I did a video essay on Chinese-made guitars and the comments were pretty divided. Most people didn't seem to care what country their guitars came from, while other people were adamantly opposed to buying guitars from China, even guitars from brands like Epiphone and Squier. This is despite the fact that if you do business with Fender or Gibson, those companies are contracting with Chinese manufacturers, and so even if you buy an American-made guitar, your money is still indirectly supporting China. But I digress. When people make up their minds about something, there's no changing them. So what's the budget guitar buyer to do? If you don't want to buy from China on moral grounds, what are the alternatives? If the cost of Chinese-made guitars goes sky high because of the tariffs, what are we to do? Well, we could buy American-made guitars, but in many cases, those guitars are as much as 10 times the price of budget guitars made elsewhere. Might as well just pay the extra cost created by the tariffs at that point. But what if it simply comes down to, I don't want to buy Chinese-made guitars anymore? Well, there is still hope. China isn't the only country making budget guitars. Well, what is a budget guitar, you ask? Good question. Thoughts on this can vary widely, but I define budget guitars as anything under $500, but ideally between $200 and $300. Yes, there are budget offerings under $200, but I have been burned so many times by sub-$200 guitars, I don't even want to include them in the budget category. You really take your chances with a guitar under $200, and if you get a guitar that needs substantial work or upgrades, then there goes the money you saved by buying a guitar that costs less than $200. The video I recently released about the Monoprice Indio Telecaster is a perfect example. That guitar had some serious issues. So let's take a look at some alternative budget brands. Squier. Not all Squier guitars are created equal, and not all Squier guitars are made in China. Many are made in Indonesia. The Squier Sonic and the Squier Classic Vibe appear to be made in Indonesia. Squier Sonic Telecasters retail for about $200, and the Classic Vibe is right around $430. The Sonic Telecaster is made from pine and features a top-load bridge, while the Classic Vibe is poplar and features a string-through-the-body bridge. Fender. That's right, Fender is now making the Standard series in Indonesia. A Fender Standard will set you back about $599, which puts it squarely outside the budget realm as far as I'm concerned. Might as well stick with the Squier brand. Yamaha Pacifica. The PAC 012 from Yamaha is also made in Indonesia. This Strat style guitar will set you back just over $200 and features a mahogany body and a rosewood fretboard. Ibanez. The Ibanez AZES31 Stratocaster style guitar is also made in Indonesia. These guitars retail for about $300 and feature a poplar body and Jatoba fretboard. Gretsch. The Gretsch Streamliner is also an Indonesian-made guitar. These sell for about $400. PRS. People don't often associate PRS guitars with budget guitars, but PRS offers an SE model for around $500 that is made in Indonesia as well. You may be seeing a pattern here. All these guitars seem to be made in Indonesia. That's because many are manufactured by Cortec, the company that makes the Cort guitar brand. Which brings us to Cort. Cork guitars retail new from between $300 and $500. Indonesia isn't the only Southeast Asian country manufacturing guitars. South Korea also has a history of building guitars, not only for brands like Fender, but they also have their own brands. Sire. Now you may confuse the Sire guitar brand with the Suhr guitar brand, but they are two different brands, Sire being the more affordable of the two. Sire was founded in Korea and makes many of their guitars in Korea. Sire has recently made some improvements to their guitars. You can get a Telecaster style guitar with a mahogany body, Alnico pickups, and rosewood rolled fretboard for just over $450. These new guitars for 2025 are available right now as a pre-order. Michael Kelly. The Michael Kelly brand is also made in South Korea. Their 1950s models cost from between $350 to $500. Vietnam is also a manufacturer of guitars. The IYV Guitar Company manufactures their guitars in Vietnam. They tend to be very budget-friendly, selling almost exclusively on Amazon direct-to-consumer. Their prices range from under $200 to over $300. I had good luck with an IYV SG style guitar that I purchased from Amazon, and that was part of my gear giveaway back in January. Buyer beware. One of the tricky things about buying budget guitars is that brands will often have their guitars made in many different countries. For example, Tajima is a brand from Brazil and they have a line of budget-friendly guitars, but those guitars are made in China, and their more expensive custom guitars are made in Brazil. Same with Squier and Epiphone. Some of their guitars are made in Indonesia, some are made in China. The Schecter brand has guitars made in the US, Indonesia, China, and South Korea. And when you go look for these brands to purchase from places like Amazon, Sweetwater, or Guitar Center, they don't show you the country of origin and many times don't show the back of the headstock where the country of origin is printed. If you're really trying to avoid buying guitars from the PRC, then it pays to do your own research. You'll also notice that many of the guitars that I mentioned are generally priced $300 and above. If you're trying to avoid Chinese-made guitars, prepare to pay a little more. The IYV brand seems to be the best option for guitars in the $200 or less category. So there you have it. If you're avoiding buying from China for political or ethical reasons, or you're wondering where you'll be able to get budget-friendly guitars if the prices of Chinese, Canadian, and Mexican guitars goes through the roof because of tariffs, now you have some information to help you make the best buying decision. In fact, I'm going to get a couple of these brands myself and do some reviews on them to see how they stack up against the usual budget brands. And once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.